Hey everybody, this is Miss Williams again, and we are going to have our second attempt at a flipped classroom. We will be doing adding and subtracting rational expressions today. Previously we've done multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So this is basically part 2 in rational expressions. Alright, what you have to remember about adding and subtracting fractions is that you must have common denominators before you can add and subtract them. If you don't have common denominators, you cannot add and subtract them the way they are. Once you have common denominators, then you just add and subtract the numerators, which is the top number, and then you keep the denominators the same. Alright, so let's start off with a couple easy ones. So we're going to start off with 3x over x plus 2 plus 7x over x plus 2. As you can see here, we have common denominators, so that makes it life easy. And all we have to do is add the numerators. So 3x and 7x gives me 10x, and then I leave the denominator the same. So my answer would be 10x over x plus 2. Subtraction works the same way. Here I have common denominators of x minus 3, so that's good. The next thing I have to do is subtract. Now you have to remember that that subtraction sign is given out to both things in the second fraction. So what I really have, I'm going to change that to addition, because that makes it easier for me. If you don't like to do that, you don't have to. You just have to remember to subtract both times. And I'm going to change the x to negative and the negative 5 to a positive 5. Now when I combine like terms, x and negative x gives me 0 x's, so I don't have to write that. And then 4 plus 5 gives me 9. So my final answer is going to be 9 over x minus 3. Alright? So what is going to happen if I don't have common denominators? Well, I have to ask myself, what does the first expression have that the second one does not? And then you have to remember that whatever you put on the bottom, you have to put on the top. Alright, so here I have an addition. It starts off with unlike denominators, because the first fraction has an x and an x plus 2, and the second one just has an x. So the second fraction needs an x plus 2. But whatever I put on the bottom, I have to put on the top. Alright? So I'm going to put an x plus 2 on the bottom, and I have to put it on the top too. So the next thing I need to do before I can combine like terms, because now my denominators are the same, is I'm going to distribute out that 5. Remember distributing? Good. So I have to give the 5 to the x and the 5 to the 2. Alright? So this ends up giving me, my first fraction didn't change, and my second fraction has now become 5x plus 10 over x times x plus 2. Now it's like my previous problems, my denominators match, so I'm going to combine my numerators. The 5x is going to come over like it is. And then 3 and 10 are both constants, so 3 plus 10 gives me 13. And my denominator stays the same. Okay? Let's do a subtraction one. Same thing, what does one expression have that the other one doesn't? And then whatever I put on the bottom, so that I can get my denominators to match, I have to put on the top. So 5x over x minus 3 minus 3x over x plus 2. So the first fraction is going to need an x plus 2, and the second fraction is going to need an x minus 3. That way I can get them to both match. As you can see here, I put the x plus 2 on the bottom of the first fraction, so I had to put it on the top of the first fraction. And on the second fraction, I did x minus 3's on both the top and the bottom. So now I'm going to have to distribute. 5x times x gives me 5x squared. 5x times 2 is 10x. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 is negative 9x. Now again, you have to remember you're subtracting. So what I did, I went through and I changed the subtraction to addition and changed all the signs after it. And finally, I'm going to combine like terms. As you can notice here, my denominator only changes from the first step to the second step, and then from there on I just can bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. So 5x squared and negative 3x squared gives me 2x squared, 10x and 9x is 19x. Alright, we got a couple more, and this time we're actually going to have to factor before we can get our denominators to match. So again, factoring, it just keeps coming back up. So I'm going to factor my first fraction, its denominator. It's a greatest common factor, so it's actually an x and an x minus 3. My second fraction, x squared minus x minus 6, is a trinomial. So again, two numbers that multiply to give me negative 6 and add to give me negative 1. Now it's easier for me to see that the first fraction is just missing an x plus 2, and the second fraction is just missing an x. So when I add it to the bottom and I add it to the top of both the first and the second fraction. Now I just need to distribute that x in the first, in the numerator of the first one. X times x is x squared, x times 2 is 2x. The second fraction just came down exactly like it was. And now I combine like terms. So the 2x and the 5x are going to come together and be 7x. And again, my denominator is just coming, my bottom numbers are just, they just keep repeating, coming down, coming down, coming down, until my final answer, once I get them to match. Okay, and finally the last one. The trinomials, so x squared minus 3x minus 10 and x squared minus 11x minus 30. So the first thing I have to do is factor those trinomials. Two numbers that multiply to give me 10 and add to give me negative 3, and two numbers that multiply to give me positive 30 and add to give me negative 11. My numerators here just came straight down, because negative 5 times 2 gives me negative 10, negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3, so that works. In my second fraction, I have a positive 30 and a negative 11, so I'm going to have to use two negatives in that one. All right. Then I can see that the x minus 5's match, but the x plus 2 and x minus 6 doesn't. So the first fraction needs an x minus 6, and the second fraction needs an x plus 2. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Now my denominators match, so I'm going to distribute in my numerators. And in this one, I actually went ahead and distributed the negative when I distributed the 4x. So 8 times x is 8x. 8 times negative 6 is negative 48. Negative 4x times x is negative 4x squared. Negative 4x times 2 is negative 8x. My denominators are still matching. They're going to come over to be in my final answer. And I'm going to combine like terms. So the negative 4x squared is going to come over. I have 8x minus 8x, which is 0x, so I don't have to write that, and then minus 48. And that's my final answer. All right. Hope you have a good evening, and I will see you in class.